The darkness of deep space held its breath. Lieutenant Aria Chen stood motionless at the holographic command interface of the UES Prometheus, her cybernetic implants humming with a subtle electrical charge. Around her, the ship's interior pulsed with a soft blue glow, a testament to the most advanced technological marvel humanity had ever created. 17 months of preparation had led to this moment. 17 months of classified research, experimental quantum dampening technology, and a mission so critical that only 5 people in the entire human government knew its full details. The Prometheus was more than a warship. It was a statement, a technological declaration that would reshape galactic power dynamics forever. Tactical Officer Marcus Rodriguez monitored the ship's external sensors, his augmented neural interface filtering terabytes of data per second. Every system was calibrated to perfection. The ship's skin, a revolutionary metamaterial developed in the hidden research labs of New Singapore, could bend electromagnetic radiation, thermal signatures, and quantum emissions around its hull. It wasn't just invisibility. It was complete environmental camouflage. "Proximity alert," Marcus whispered, his voice barely a breath. A holographic display materialized, showing the intricate defensive grid of the Krell-Naxian Imperial fleet. Hundreds of sensor nodes, each capable of detecting the most microscopic deviation in spacetime, spread out like a deadly web of technological precision. Aria's fingers danced across the control interface. Each movement was a calculated ballet of human intuition and machine precision. The Prometheus wasn't just moving through space, it was rewriting the very laws of detection. Quantum entanglement algorithms predicted and neutralized potential detection points milliseconds before they could register. "They won't even know we're here," she muttered, a hint of a smile playing at the corner of her mouth. Behind her, the ship's artificial intelligence, a quantum neural hybrid they called ARI, Advanced Reactive Intelligence Algorithm, processed potential scenarios at speeds that would make traditional supercomputers look like ancient calculators. The mission parameters were simple, yet nothing about this operation was truly simple. Humanity had been watching, waiting. The Krell-Naxian Empire had spent centuries believing themselves untouchable. Their technological superiority was a mantra repeated across countless star systems. They had conquered civilizations, dismantled entire planetary defenses, and crushed any resistance with cold, calculated efficiency. But they had never encountered humanity's true potential. Each system on the Prometheus represented a breakthrough that defied current scientific understanding. The quantum dampening field didn't just mask the ship, it actively manipulated the fabric of spacetime around it. Sensor readings would show nothing. Thermal scans would detect no heat signature. Quantum probability calculations would render the ship's existence a mathematical impossibility. Marcus tracked the external environment with inhuman precision. "Sensor nodes approaching," he reported. "Distance, 0.03 light seconds." Aria didn't move, didn't breathe. The ship became one with the surrounding space, a perfect absence, a mathematical ghost. The Krell-Naxian sensor grid passed. Nothing triggered. No alarm. No detection. Inside the Prometheus, a silent celebration hummed through the crew's neural interfaces. This was more than a mission. This was humanity's first true step into a larger, more dangerous galactic theater. No longer would they be seen as a young, emerging species. Today, they would become something else entirely. A predator. Silent. Unseen. Unstoppable. The ghost continued its journey, carrying with it the hopes of an entire species, and the first warning to a galaxy that had underestimated humanity for far too long. Admiral Vorkax's scaled fingers trembled as the impossible unfolded before him. The command deck of the Krell-Naxian flagship, Eternal Dominance, hummed with nervous energy. Massive holographic displays flickered with sensor data, each screen a complex tapestry of mathematical predictions and spatial calculations. The senior scientific advisor, Axtell, pushed forward a crystalline data projector. Probability matrices danced in three-dimensional space, each potential approach vector calculated to 14 decimal points. Quantum probability computers, the pinnacle of Krell-Naxian technological achievement, churned out millions of calculations per second. And yet, they showed nothing. Impossible, Engstall whispered, mandibles clicking with nervous energy. The senior scientists surrounding the Admiral exchanged worried glances. In 10,000 years of galactic exploration, the Krell-Naxian Imperial Fleet had never encountered a true unknown. The flagship's sensor grid was a marvel of technological sophistication. Quantum entanglement arrays stretched across multiple star systems, creating a detection network so precise it could identify a single electron's movement from light years away. Multiple redundant systems cross-referenced every potential anomaly. Predictive algorithms mapped potential threat vectors with mathematical certainty. But this was different. A single anomalous signature had appeared, materialized, within their most secure defensive perimeter. It defied every known law of spatial navigation. One moment, absolute emptiness. The next, a presence that should have been impossible. "Run the diagnostics again," Vorkax commanded, his voice a low growl that vibrated through the command deck. Generations of military tradition demanded absolute certainty. The Krell-Naxian Empire had not maintained its galactic dominance through uncertainty or fear. Engstall's neural interface connected directly to the flagship's primary computational core. Streams of data flooded his consciousness, each line of code, each mathematical calculation a potential explanation for the impossible detection. Quantum probability models collapsed. Spatial recognition algorithms stuttered and reset. The senior scientists worked with frantic precision. External sensor arrays recalibrated. Internal diagnostic systems ran multiple verification protocols. Emergency backup systems engaged, then disengaged, then engaged again. Nothing made sense. A junior sensor technician, barely more than a hatchling in Krell-Naxian years, raised a trembling appendage. "Admiral." He started, then stopped. The weight of potential career destruction hung in the air. To suggest an impossible scenario was to invite professional ridicule. Vorkax's golden eyes narrowed. "Speak," he commanded. "The signature," the young technician continued. "It's not just undetectable. It's adaptive. Each time we adjust our sensor parameters, something shifts. It's as if the very concept of detection is being rewritten." Silence crashed through the command deck. Adaptive detection was a theoretical concept, something discussed in advanced military academies as a thought experiment. No known civilization possessed technology capable of truly adaptive stealth. No known civilization. The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. Something was approaching. Something that understood their detection system so completely that it could move between the mathematical cracks of their perception. Vorkax felt something he had not experienced in centuries of military service. Something that ancient Krell-Naxian warriors spoke of in hushed legends. Fear. Pure, fundamental fear of the truly unknown. Communication arrays across the Krell-Naxian fleet trembled with an energy that defied typical electromagnetic patterns. The transmission arrived not as a typical signal, but as a quantum-encrypted message that simultaneously existed and did not exist within their communication spectrum. Chief Communications Officer Zexeler felt the first tendrils of true terror crawl along his neural pathways. Decades of diplomatic training, centuries of military communication protocols, all of it seemed to dissolve in an instant. The message was perfection incarnate. Each word translated with molecular precision, carrying undertones that transcended language. It wasn't just a translation. It was a complete linguistic deconstruction and reconstruction that spoke directly to the neural centers of comprehension. The Krell-Naxian language was complex, a living system of mathematical and emotional communication that had evolved over millennia to capture the most nuanced concepts of their civilization. And this message broke through it all with terrifying simplicity. Surrender or be neutralized. You have 120 standard galactic seconds to comply. Zexalar's neural implants began to overheat. The message wasn't just words. It was a complete informational package that carried layers of meaning beyond simple communication. Embedded within the transmission were contextual markers that suggested an understanding of Krell-Naxian communication systems that should have been impossible. On the flagship's command deck, a horrified silence descended. Admiral Vorkax's communication advisors worked frantically. Quantum decryption algorithms spun into overdrive. Neural networks attempted to trace the transmission's origin, to understand its fundamental structure. Each attempt failed more spectacularly than the last. The transmission existed in a state of quantum uncertainty, simultaneously a message and a weapon, communication and invasion. "Analyze," Vorkax commanded, his voice a low growl that vibrated through the ship's communication systems. Zexalar's neural interface began to break down the message with surgical precision. The language carried molecular-level information packets. Hidden within the transmission were computational models that seemed to predict and counter every potential Krell-Naxian response before it could be formulated. It was more than a message. It was a complete strategic assessment. Junior communication specialists began to panic. Their neural interfaces overloaded, unable to process the complexity of the incoming transmission. Some clutched their heads, blood trickling from their sensory nodes as the message's complexity overwhelmed their biological systems. The transmission revealed something far more terrifying than a simple threat of destruction. It demonstrated a level of technological and linguistic comprehension that suggested the incoming vessel understood the Krell-Naxian civilization at a fundamental level that surpassed millennia of their own technological development. This was not a communication. This was a declaration. Humanity had arrived. Vorkax watched as his most senior communication specialists struggled. Their neural interfaces sparked and flickered, unable to process the multilayered complexity of the message. Each attempt to analyze the transmission revealed new layers of incomprehensible sophistication. The 120-second countdown began. No response was possible. No defense could be mounted. The message itself was a form of technological warfare more advanced than any weapon the Krell-Naxian Empire had ever encountered. Silence crashed through the command deck. The universe held its breath. Humanity spoke, and the galaxy listened. The Krell-Naxian battle formations transformed with military precision. Vorkax's flagship became the centerpiece of a defensive matrix that had crushed entire civilizations. Hundreds of warships aligned in a perfect geometric pattern, each vessel a technological marvel of destructive potential. Quantum disruptors charged to maximum capacity. Each weapon represented centuries of weapons research, technology so advanced it could theoretically unravel the molecular bonds of entire planetary systems. Graviton shields oscillated at frequencies designed to repel even the most sophisticated invasion forces. Temporal displacement cannons, weapons that could potentially erase targets from existence, powered up with a low, menacing hum that resonated through the metal corridors of each ship. "Activate full defensive protocols," Vorkax commanded, his voice cutting through the tension on the command deck. Secondary defense systems engage. Nano-adaptive armor plates began to reconfigure, creating multiple redundant defensive layers. Plasma-infused energy fields expanded outward, creating a protective bubble around the fleet that could theoretically withstand direct hits from multiple antimatter warheads. The senior tactical advisor, Kexerin, brought up holographic projections of potential engagement scenarios. Millions of tactical simulations ran simultaneously, each calculation refined to 14 decimal points. Every possible approach vector, every potential weapon configuration, every conceivable strategy was analyzed and counter-strategy developed. "We are the most advanced military force in the known galaxy," Vorkax growled, more to reassure himself than his increasingly nervous crew. The unspoken words hung in the air. "No single vessel can challenge us." His words died mid-sentence. The first indication that something was wrong came from the most unexpected source. Quantum entanglement sensors, the most advanced early warning system in galactic history, began to produce nonsensical readings. Not errors, not interference. Something far more disturbing. Impossible data. Tactical displays flickered, not with the typical digital instability of a cyber attack, but with a precision that suggested something was actively rewriting the fundamental parameters of their detection systems. Recalibrating, a junior tactical officer announced, her voice tight with professional tension. Nothing happened. The displays continued to shift, not randomly, not chaotically, but with a mathematical precision that suggested someone, or something, was actively redesigning their tactical interfaces in real time. Kexarin's neural implants began to overheat. Massive computational systems that could normally process galaxy-wide tactical scenarios in microseconds started to slow. Not crash, not fail, but respond with increasing hesitation. Shields, Vorkax barked, full power. The command was instantaneous, but the response was not. Graviton shields that should have engaged in nanoseconds began to respond with a sluggishness that defied technological possibility. It was as if something was systematically inserting mathematical impossibilities into their most fundamental defensive systems. Weapon targeting systems began to produce laughable results. Quantum disruptors aimed at locations that did not and could not exist. Temporal displacement cannons calculated firing solutions that violated basic laws of physics. This was not an attack. This was a fundamental deconstruction of their entire defensive capability. The Krell-Naxian Imperial Fleet, masters of galactic warfare, conquerors of countless civilizations, found themselves facing something beyond their comprehension. Not an enemy, not a threat, a complete reimagining of technological warfare. And they were utterly, terrifyingly unprepared. The moment of true technological apocalypse arrived with surgical precision. The Prometheus didn't attack in any traditional sense. It dismantled. Each system of the Krell-Naxian fleet became a canvas of systematic deconstruction, a living demonstration of technological superiority that defied every known principle of warfare. Communications arrays were the first to fall, not through jamming or traditional electronic warfare, but through a method that could only be described as mathematical poetry. Quantum communication channels collapsed into recursive loops, each attempt to communicate becoming a labyrinth of impossible signals. Messages folded in on themselves, creating communication patterns that violated every known principle of information transfer. Lieutenant Area Chen watched the process unfold with clinical detachment. Her neural interface with the ship's AI moved beyond traditional human-machine interaction. It was a symbiotic dance of intelligence, each movement calculated to produce maximum strategic effect with minimum energy expenditure. Shield harmonics began to dissolve, not through brute force, but through a method that rewrote their fundamental operational parameters. The graviton shields that had protected Krell-Naxian vessels for centuries became nothing more than intricate light shows. Beautiful, complex, but fundamentally useless. Weapon targeting systems transformed into mathematical absurdities. Quantum disruptors aimed at locations that existed simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Temporal displacement cannons calculated firing solutions that would make theoretical physicists weep with both terror and joy. Each weapon became a perfect instrument of confusion, their destructive potential redirected into pure, incomprehensible complexity. Systemic deconstruction at 47.3%. Area reported through Area's neural interface. The AI's voice carried no excitement, no pride, just pure clinical observation. On the Krell-Naxian flagship, panic began to spread in mathematical waves. Senior officers watched in horror as their most advanced technological systems became increasingly nonsensical. It wasn't that the systems were failing. They were evolving in ways that defied comprehension. Engstall, the senior scientific advisor, tried to analyze the process. His neural implants worked overtime, attempting to understand the methodology behind the technological dismantling. Each attempt resulted in more confusion. The attack, if it could be called an attack, was a living algorithm that adapted faster than any computational system could track. Weapon power conduits began to redistribute energy in patterns that violated basic thermodynamic principles. Power systems created closed loops of energy transfer that should have been impossible. Fusion reactors began to generate power through methods that contradicted everything known about nuclear physics. "It's not destroying our systems," one junior officer whispered. "It's rewriting them." The Prometheus moved with a grace that suggested it was more than a machine. Each movement was a calculated response, a living demonstration of technological potential that transcended traditional concepts of artificial intelligence. Marcus Rodriguez monitored the external systems, his augmented perception capturing details that would have been invisible to ordinary human perception. The ship was learning, adapting, growing with each microsecond of engagement. No direct weapon was fired. No traditional attack launched. The Prometheus was conducting a symphony of technological deconstruction that was both terrifying and beautiful in its precision. Entire battle groups found themselves unable to communicate. Navigation systems produced impossible route calculations. Weapon systems became intricate mathematical puzzles that could not be solved. This was more than warfare. This was a fundamental demonstration of technological superiority that would be studied by civilizations for generations to come. The Krell-Naxian Imperial Fleet, once the most feared military force in the galaxy, was being systematically transformed into a living technological experiment. And humanity had become the ultimate researcher. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in the command chair of the Prometheus. Her consciousness expanded beyond traditional human perception. The neural interface was more than a connection. It was a complete symbiosis between human intelligence and quantum artificial intelligence. Araya, the ship's advanced intelligence, existed as both a technological marvel and an extension of human creativity. Years of development had produced something far beyond a traditional artificial intelligence. This was a living system that understood warfare as an art form of technological and psychological complexity. "Adaptive response protocol initiating," Elena whispered, though no sound escaped her lips. Her neural link translated thought into instantaneous ship-wide action. The bridge of the Prometheus was unlike any traditional command center. Holographic interfaces shifted and changed with liquid complexity. Data streams moved like living organisms, each information packet a potential strategy, each calculation a potential weapon. The walls themselves seemed to breathe with technological potential. Marcus Rodriguez, Elena's cousin and the ship's tactical specialist, monitored the external systems. His augmented perception captured details that would have been invisible to ordinary human senses. Quantum probability maps expanded around him, showing potential engagement scenarios that existed simultaneously in multiple potential states. Psychological disruption at 62.7%. Araya reported. The AI's voice carried no emotion, just pure clinical observation. Each word was a mathematical precision that conveyed more information than traditional human communication could ever achieve. The Krell-Naxian fleet had been reduced to a living technological experiment. Their most advanced systems were now nothing more than an intricate puzzle that humanity was systematically solving. It wasn't destruction. It was complete, fundamental understanding. Elena's mind raced through potential scenarios. Years of advanced training, neural augmentation, and psychological conditioning had prepared her for this moment. The human military had spent decades developing operators who could think beyond traditional warfare concepts. She was the product of that vision, a living weapon more sophisticated than any technological system. Araya projected potential engagement scenarios. Each possibility was a complex dance of technological and psychological warfare. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a living, thinking entity that could predict, adapt, and reshape battlefield dynamics faster than any traditional military system could comprehend. Initiating comprehensive system analysis, Elena thought. The command translated instantaneously across the ship's quantum communication network. Surrounding the Prometheus, space itself seemed to bend. Traditional concepts of distance, time, and engagement became fluid. The ship moved not just through physical space, but through probability matrices that defied traditional understanding of navigation. Marcus tracked the external environment with inhuman precision. Quantum entanglement sensors created a comprehensive map of potential engagement scenarios. Each potential movement was calculated across multiple potential timelines, each decision a complex mathematical equation that considered psychological, technological, and strategic variables. The Krell-Naxian fleet had become nothing more than a stationary target. Their most advanced defensive systems were now complex art installations of technological futility. Each attempt to respond was anticipated, each potential strategy already mapped and neutralized before it could be fully conceived. "We are beyond warfare," Elena thought, her consciousness expanding through the ship's neural network. "This is pure communication." Araya responded with a cascade of mathematical possibilities that translated human creativity into technological potential. The ship was learning, growing, evolving with each microsecond of engagement. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same. The Prometheus continued its silent dance of technological superiority, a living demonstration of human potential that transcended traditional concepts of warfare, intelligence, and technological achievement. The moment of complete systemic collapse arrived with mathematical precision. What began as a technological engagement transformed into something far more profound. The Prometheus was no longer just a warship. It had become a living demonstration of humanity's potential, a force that rewrote the fundamental understanding of technological warfare. Admiral Vorkax watched in horror as his entire strategic model disintegrated. Centuries of military doctrine, millennia of technological development, all reduced to a complex, but ultimately futile display of technological inadequacy. Each system of the Krell-Naxian fleet was systematically deconstructed, not through violence, but through a method that could only be described as intellectual dismantling. Communication networks collapsed first, not through traditional jamming or electronic warfare, but through a method that transformed communication itself into an impossible mathematical puzzle. Messages folded in on themselves, creating communication patterns that violated every known principle of information transfer. Lieutenant Aria Chen monitored the process with clinical detachment. Her neural interface with Araya, the ship's quantum artificial intelligence, moved beyond traditional human-machine interaction. It was a symbiotic dance of intelligence, each movement calculated to produce maximum strategic effect with minimum energy expenditure. The tactical deconstruction was nothing short of artistry. Weapon systems became increasingly nonsensical. Quantum disruptors aimed at locations that existed simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Temporal displacement cannons calculated firing solutions that would make theoretical physicists weep with both terror and excitement. Each weapon transformed into a perfect instrument of confusion, their destructive potential redirected into pure, incomprehensible complexity. Systemic neutralization at 87.6%. Araya reported through Aria's neural interface. The AI's voice carried no excitement, no pride, just pure, clinical observation. Across the Krell-Naxian fleet, panic spread in mathematical waves. Senior officers watched in absolute terror as their most advanced technological systems became increasingly divorced from rational functionality. It wasn't that the systems were failing. They were evolving in ways that defied comprehension. Marcus Rodriguez tracked external systems with augmented perception. The Prometheus moved with a grace that suggested it was more than a machine. Each movement was a calculated response, a living demonstration of technological potential that transcended traditional concepts of artificial intelligence. The invasion was being dismantled not through destruction, but through complete technological reimagining. Fusion reactors began to generate power through methods that contradicted fundamental principles of physics. Power systems created closed loops of energy transfer that should have been impossible. Entire battle groups found themselves unable to communicate, navigate, or respond with any coherent strategy. "It's not destroying our systems," one junior Krell-Naxian officer whispered, his voice trembling. "It's rewriting them." The psychological impact was as significant as the technological dismantling. Each moment of the engagement demonstrated a level of technological superiority that went beyond traditional concepts of warfare. The Prometheus was conducting a symphony of systemic deconstruction that was both terrifying and beautiful in its precision. No traditional weapons were fired. No direct attack launched. The ship was systematically revealing the absolute limitations of the Krell-Maxian technological understanding. Admiral Vorkax realized the true nature of the engagement. This was not a battle. This was a complete demonstration of technological potential. Humanity was not just challenging the Krell-Maxian Imperial fleet. They were revealing a fundamental truth about the nature of technological evolution. The invasion had become an experiment, and humanity was the ultimate researcher. As systems continued to collapse, one thing became absolutely clear. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived. Not with violence, not with aggression, but with a level of technological understanding that redefined the very concept of warfare. The Prometheus continued its silent dance of technological superiority, a living testament to human potential. Silence descended across the decimated Krell-Maxian fleet. The aftermath of the engagement was not a battlefield of destruction, but a canvas of technological revelation. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched through the Prometheus's quantum adaptive viewing systems. The alien fleet lay suspended in space, not destroyed, but fundamentally transformed. Each vessel existed in a state of quantum uncertainty, a living testament to humanity's technological breakthrough. Admiral Vorkax transmitted a surrender that was more than a simple act of defeat. It was a recognition of a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. His communication carried the weight of millennia of imperial tradition, now reduced to a single, humble transmission. The message was simple, profound. "We acknowledge," the transmission read, its quantum encrypted format carrying layers of meaning beyond simple words. Linguistic analyses would later reveal it as one of the most complex communication events in galactic history. Araya, the ship's quantum artificial intelligence, began processing the surrender with mathematical precision. Each word, each quantum encrypted packet became a study in technological and cultural communication. The AI was not just interpreting a message. It was creating a comprehensive understanding of an entire civilization's moment of transformation. Lieutenant Aria Chen monitored the external systems. Her neural interface expanded beyond traditional human perception, capturing details that would have been invisible to ordinary human senses. The surrender was more than a military action. It was a moment of species-level communication. Marcus Rodriguez tracked the diplomatic implications. Years of advanced training had prepared humanity for this moment, a first contact that redefined the very concept of interstellar engagement. The Prometheus was not just a warship. It was a diplomatic instrument of unprecedented sophistication. Comprehensive analysis initiated. Araya reported, its voice a perfect blend of mathematical precision and subtle emotional undertone. The Krell-Maxian fleet remained suspended in space, a living museum of technological possibility. Each vessel existed in a state that defied traditional understanding of physics, navigation, and military engagement. They were neither destroyed nor functional. They were something entirely new. Quantum probability maps expanded around the bridge, showing potential scenarios of future engagement. Each possibility was a complex dance of technological and psychological potential. The surrender was not an end. It was a beginning. Across human communication networks, the news spread with lightning speed. This was more than a military victory. This was a fundamental demonstration of human technological potential. Research facilities, military installations, and diplomatic centers began analyzing every microsecond of the engagement. The Prometheus had done more than defeat an invasion force. It had rewritten the fundamental understanding of technological warfare. Transmission complete, Araya reported. The words carried more weight than a simple status update. It was a moment of species-level achievement. Elena Rodriguez understood the true significance of the moment. This was humanity's true first step onto the galactic stage. Not through violence, not through aggression, but through a level of technological understanding that transcended traditional concepts of warfare and communication. The alien fleet remained suspended, a living testament to human potential. No traditional weapons had been fired, no conventional attack launched. The engagement had been a pure demonstration of technological superiority that went beyond physical destruction. It was a communication, a revelation. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same. The Prometheus continued its silent vigil, a living beacon of human potential, technological innovation, and the infinite possibilities of species-level advancement.